Have you ever been in a situation where someone was trying to overpower you with their voice, their aggression, or their ego, and you wished you had the perfect words that would not only shut them down but do it in a way that left everyone in the room silently respecting you? Not through shouting, not through insults, but through calm intelligence. Imagine being in the middle of an argument, at work, with a boss who doesn't listen, with a family member who always thinks they're right, or even a stranger trying to impose their will, and with a single, precise phrase, you turn the tables. The energy shifts. They pause, lower their voice, and for the first time, they actually listen. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 responses so powerful, so tested by philosophy and psychology, that when you use them, they can silence anyone while keeping you in control. And here's the key, these aren't manipulative tricks. They're strategies rooted in emotional intelligence, Stoic philosophy, and modern communication science. They protect you, they project strength, and they put you in a position of respect without ever losing your calm. And you'll want to stay until the very end, because response number 3 has been shown in conflict resolution studies to completely disarm manipulators and toxic personalities. It's that effective. Let's begin. Response number 1, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Think about the last time someone shouted at you. Science shows that when a person raises their voice, their brain is in a state of fight or flight. It's less about logic and more about dominance. But when you calmly say this phrase, you're telling the other person, and everyone listening, that you don't play that game. You lead with composure, not chaos. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus warned that those who cannot control their tongue are slaves to their emotions. By refusing to mirror their anger, you're silently proving that you are the one in control. And the impact? People notice. They see you as the calm in the storm, the leader in the chaos. Response number 2, the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. This one is like holding up a mirror. Research in social psychology tells us that people often project their own frustration, insecurity, or pain onto others. When you respond with this phrase, you don't retaliate, you don't stoop down, you make them confront their own behavior. Imagine someone throwing sarcasm or contempt at you. Instead of snapping back, you calmly reflect their words back to them with this line, and suddenly the weight of their own disrespect hits them. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's exactly what you're doing here, rising above, not sinking below. And what's fascinating is that neuroscience shows people feel cognitive dissonance when their behavior is exposed calmly rather than attacked. In other words, you're making them uncomfortable with their own actions, without raising your tone. Response number 3, let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Now here's where things get even more powerful. Some interactions aren't conversations, they're verbal battlegrounds. The other person interrupts, attacks, escalates. But you don't have to play. This phrase shifts the rules of the game instantly. Studies in conflict resolution show that setting clear boundaries in communication forces the other person to reevaluate, because you've just removed the fuel they thrive on, emotional reaction. Epictetus put it perfectly, you cannot control others, but you can control what you accept. By calmly stating that respect is the condition for dialogue, you reclaim control without hostility. And often, this silence is deafening. Response number 4, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. This one is your shield. There are moments when continuing to talk isn't strength, it's self-destruction. Modern psychology calls it toxic persistence, when someone keeps pushing just to wear you down. But you don't have to stay in the arena. By saying this phrase, you're choosing peace over pointless conflict. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." Walking away isn't weakness. It's power. It's you locking a door that doesn't deserve to stay open. And when others see that you can disengage without anger, they respect you even more. Response number 5, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Not all disagreements are with enemies. Sometimes they're with people you love, family, friends, colleagues, who insist on imposing their beliefs. This phrase is respectful yet firm. It says, I hear you, but I think for myself. Seneca once warned that being a slave to others' opinions is the worst of prisons. This phrase is the key that unlocks you from that prison. It protects your individuality while preserving the relationship. And in today's world, where groupthink and pressure dominate, standing calmly in your own truth is one of the most powerful things you can do. Now, imagine practicing all 5 of these responses. Picture yourself in the middle of tension, and instead of being dragged into chaos, you rise above it, calm, precise, unshakable. You're no longer the one fighting to be heard. You're the one people listen to. Because true respect isn't forced with volume, it's earned with presence. Let's recap quickly. 1. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. 2. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. 3. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. 4. I prefer not to continue this conversation. And 5. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. These are more than phrases. They are shields of self-respect, swords of clarity, and strategies of wisdom. Use them with calm confidence, and you'll notice people treat you differently. They pause, they listen, they respect. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 5 responses are you going to practice first? Drop it in the comments below, because your answer might inspire someone else who needs it today. And if you found this valuable, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the next video will take you even deeper into the ancient wisdom of the Stoics and modern psychology, tools that will help you command respect, protect your peace, and live with strength in a noisy world. Let's go even deeper, because the truth is these 5 responses aren't just clever phrases you can memorize. They are tools for rewiring how people perceive you, how conflicts unfold, and most importantly, how you see yourself in moments of pressure. Think about it, every argument is a negotiation of power. Not physical power, but psychological power, the power of who sets the tone, who maintains control, and who ultimately walks away respected. And history, psychology, even neuroscience all show us the same truth: the person who can stay calm under pressure is the one who ends up leading the room. Let me give you an example. In the corporate world, researchers at Harvard studied leaders in high-stakes meetings and found something fascinating: the executives who spoke less, but with calm precision, were consistently rated as more authoritative and trustworthy than those who dominated the conversation with volume. That's exactly what happens when you use response 1, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Suddenly, you're no longer competing in a shouting match, you're standing above it, and the room shifts its attention to you. And this isn't just theory. Imagine being in a heated meeting where a colleague tries to bulldoze you with their voice. Instead of raising yours, you pause, breathe, and deliver that line. The silence that follows is worth more than any counter-argument, because silence is where respect lives. Now let's expand on response 2, the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. This isn't just a comeback, it's emotional Aikido. In martial arts, Aikido uses the opponent's energy against them without direct force. And that's what you're doing here, you're letting their negativity collapse under its own weight. There's also a psychological principle called the spotlight effect. People overestimate how much others notice their mistakes. When you calmly reflect their words back at them, you shine the spotlight on their behavior, and suddenly they hear themselves more clearly than they ever did before. And the beauty is, you don't have to attack, you just let their words expose them. Let's talk about response 3, let's talk when we can do it respectfully. This one isn't just powerful in personal relationships, it's game-changing in professional life. Therapists, mediators, and even hostage negotiators use a version of this phrase because it sets a boundary without aggression. It reframes the situation from, I'm fighting you, to, I'm raising the standard for how this conversation happens. Imagine a teenager arguing with their parent, voices rising, tempers flaring. The parent calmly says, we'll continue this when we can both speak respectfully. That moment doesn't just stop the conflict, it models emotional intelligence. And studies show kids who experience this kind of boundary setting grow up with higher resilience and conflict resolution skills. Response 4, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation, may be the hardest to use, but it's also the most liberating. Why? Because it goes against our ego. We all want the last word. But sometimes the greatest strength is walking away. Neuroscience explains why, when you disengage, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, decision-making part of your brain, stays in control. But when you keep arguing, the amygdala, the fight-or-flight center, takes over, and that's when you say things you regret. Choosing not to continue is like choosing to stay in control of yourself, no matter what storm is outside. And here's something powerful, the moment you show someone they can't drag you into chaos, you change the dynamic forever. They'll think twice before trying it again. Now response 5, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. This might be the most underrated one, because it seems simple. But think about how rare it is today to disagree calmly. We live in an age of outrage. Social media thrives on arguments where people scream at each other in comments. News debates reward the loudest voice, not the wisest. But when you use this phrase, you're breaking the cycle. You're proving you can stand your ground without hostility. There's also a deeper psychological concept here called differentiation, the ability to maintain your own identity in relationships without being consumed by others' expectations. When you say this phrase, you're not rejecting the other person, you're affirming your independence. And independence, in any relationship, breeds respect. Now, let me give you a bonus insight, these 5 responses work best when paired with body language. Why? Because research shows that over 60% of communication is nonverbal. So when you deliver these phrases, your calm tone, steady eye contact, and controlled posture amplify their impact. Imagine saying, I don't need to raise my voice to be right, while leaning back slightly, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. That combination is unforgettable. Here's another powerful idea, practice these phrases before you need them. Just like athletes train before the big game, you can rehearse them in small moments. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of reacting, whisper one of these lines to yourself. Next time a friend gets sarcastic, practice reflecting it calmly. The more you rehearse in small moments, the easier it becomes to use them in high-stakes situations. Because when the pressure is on, your brain defaults to what it knows best. Let me leave you with a story from history. Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected leaders of all time, was known for his calm under fire. During heated debates, he often refused to match the anger of his opponents. Instead, he would pause, smile slightly, and respond with clarity that left the other person speechless. Many historians believe it was this composure, more than his words alone, that earned him lasting respect. And that's exactly what you're training when you use these 5 responses, the ability to remain composed in chaos. So, let me ask you this, which of these 5 responses do you think will change your life the most if you master it? Which one would make the biggest difference at work, at home, or in your relationships? Share it in the comments, because your answer might inspire someone else who's struggling with conflict right now. And remember, true strength isn't in overpowering others. It's in mastering yourself. Subscribe now, because in the next video, I'll show you not just what to say, but how to think like the great Stoics and modern psychologists when the world tries to test your patience. Now that you understand the 5 responses and why they work, let's step into some real-life scenarios so you can actually see how these phrases play out. Because here's the truth, knowledge without practice is like a sword still in its sheath, powerful, but useless. The moment you hear these examples, you'll start imagining how to apply them in your own life, and that's when everything changes. Let's start with response 1, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Picture this, you're in a team meeting at work. A colleague interrupts you, raises their voice, and tries to dominate the discussion. The natural instinct? To match their energy, to prove you won't be silenced. But instead, you lean back, keep your tone even, and say calmly, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Suddenly, the room shifts. Your colleague looks thrown off, and the rest of the team notices your composure. Who looks more powerful now, the one shouting, or the one who stayed calm? This is the art of leading without aggression. Now response 2, the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Imagine you're at a family dinner, and someone makes a passive-aggressive remark, something like, "Oh, I guess some people just don't care about family traditions." The temptation? Fire back, defend yourself, escalate. But you take a breath, look them in the eye, and say, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." Silence. Forks stop halfway to mouths. Suddenly, the weight of their own words hangs in the air, and they're forced to sit with it. You didn't attack. You didn't defend. You reflected. And in doing so, you maintained your dignity while exposing theirs. Moving to response 3, let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Imagine you're in a relationship, and your partner is upset, raising their voice, cutting you off. Instead of diving into the chaos, you hold up your hand gently and say, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." This isn't running away. It's raising the bar. You've set the condition for real communication, respect. And research shows that couples who use boundary-setting phrases like this are more likely to resolve conflicts constructively and strengthen their relationship in the long run. You're not avoiding the issue, you're protecting the dialogue from becoming toxic. Now response 4, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. Picture this, you're talking to a coworker who thrives on drama. No matter what you say, they twist your words, provoke you, and push you toward frustration. Instead of taking the bait, you breathe, stand up, and say, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." Then you walk away. The effect? The drama dies instantly. You didn't give them what they wanted, your emotional energy. And here's the powerful part, you showed everyone watching that your peace cannot be bought, baited, or broken. That is authority. Finally, response 5, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Imagine you're with a friend who keeps pressuring you to make a decision, maybe about your career, your lifestyle, or even your beliefs. They're convinced they know what's best for you. Instead of arguing point by point, you calmly say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." What happens next? The pressure disappears. Why? Because you've acknowledged their view without surrendering your independence. They may not agree, but they're forced to accept that you stand on your own ground. And that's a respect they'll remember. Now let's take it one step further. Imagine a single day where you used all 5 phrases. Morning meeting, colleague shouts, you reply, "I don't need to raise my voice to be right." Lunchtime, sarcastic remark, you reflect, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." Afternoon argument, too heated, you say, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." Evening, someone pushes your buttons, you cut it off, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." And later that night, a close friend insists you must think like them, and you finish with, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." One day. 5 moments. And by the end of that day, you'll notice something extraordinary, you feel lighter, calmer, and more in control than ever before. Why? Because you didn't let anyone steal your peace, and you didn't let anyone dictate the tone of your life. And that's exactly what the Stoics meant when they said real power is self-mastery. Now, let me ask you, which of these 5 scenarios feels most like your life right now? Work? Family? Relationships? Toxic people? Comment below and share your story, because someone else watching this might need to hear it too. And remember, every time you use these responses, you're not just silencing noise. You're training yourself in the art of emotional intelligence, in the discipline of presence, and in the philosophy of true strength. Subscribe now, because in the next video, we'll do something even more powerful. We'll roleplay entire dialogues where these phrases are tested against real-world personalities, manipulators, critics, aggressive bosses, and you'll see how to win respect without ever losing your calm. Let's bring everything together with roleplay, because the best way to learn is not just to hear the phrases, but to see them in action. I'll walk you through real conversations where these 5 responses transform the entire dynamic. Scenario 1, the workplace. Imagine you're in a heated meeting. Your boss slams the table and raises his voice, you're not listening. This project is a mess. Everyone looks at you, waiting for your reaction. Instead of matching his tone, you sit back, steady your breath, and calmly respond, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. The room freezes. The boss blinks, caught off guard, and lowers his tone. Why? Because the power just shifted. You demonstrated control without aggression, and suddenly, every eye in that room sees you as the calm authority. Scenario 2, the family table. Your uncle smirks across his plate and says, some people here clearly don't understand responsibility. The air tightens. Normally, you defend yourself, maybe even argue, but this time you breathe and say, the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. His fork pauses. The family falls silent. And for the first time, he has nothing to add. You didn't insult him. You didn't take the bait. You made him confront himself, and everyone noticed. Scenario 3, relationships. You're talking with your partner, but emotions are running high. They cut you off again and again, raising their voice. Instead of shouting back, you raise your hand gently and say, let's talk when we can do it respectfully. The argument halts. They look at you, surprised. And in that moment, you've just raised the bar for your relationship, you've made it clear that respect is the minimum price of admission for communication. This isn't avoidance, this is maturity. Scenario 4, toxic coworker. They corner you by the coffee machine, throwing digs and twisting your words. You never do your part, do you? They sneer. Your patience wears thin, but instead of exploding, you look them in the eye and say, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. Then you turn and walk away. The entire cycle of drama collapses, because without your reaction, they have no fuel. That's strength, not in fighting, but in disengaging. Scenario 5, friends. You're sitting with a close friend who insists, you need to quit your job. You'd be crazy not to. They push harder and harder, convinced they know what's best for you. But instead of debating, you calmly say, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. The pressure dissolves. The friend leans back, realizing you're not rejecting them, you're simply holding your ground. And that subtle difference changes everything. Now imagine all 5 of these moments stitched into your own life. The boss who used to intimidate you, silenced. The family member who used to embarrass you, exposed. The partner who argued endlessly, now reset with respect. The toxic coworker who thrived on chaos, left powerless. And the friend who crossed your boundaries, gently reminded where the line is. These aren't just words. They're tools of transformation. They're shields for your dignity and swords for your self-respect. And when you practice them, something incredible happens, people start to treat you differently. They think twice before raising their voice. They pause before insulting you. They hesitate before trying to push your buttons. Because deep down, they realize you're not someone to play with, you're someone to respect. And that's the true gift of these 5 responses. Let's close with one final thought. In every conflict, you have 2 choices, to react or to respond. Reacting is easy. Responding takes discipline. But the person who responds with calm precision wins not only the argument, but the long game of respect, peace, and influence. So which scenario do you see yourself in the most? The boss, the family member, the partner, the coworker, or the friend? Share it in the comments. I want to know where you'll use these phrases first. And remember, this is only the beginning. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me in the next journey where we'll not just silence noise, but master the mindset of true leaders, thinkers, and philosophers, so you can walk through life with unshakable calm and undeniable presence.